I woke up with another hangover. Turning on the TV, the news is reporting that 23 were killed during last night's rioting. This country is going to shit fast. For the last 12 months, America has been rapidly coming apart at the seams. After a viral pandemic that lasted 2 years, the global economy had gone into free fall. An emergency G20 summit had come up with a plan to stabilize the global economy and prevent a collapse of the financial system. While the plan had worked, mass unemployment had remained stubbornly high. Riots had become a regular occurrence. Protesters frequently open fire on police and curfews are being implemented across the country. We've had 4 elections in as many years. When the 4th attempt to form a government failed, they decided to abandon democracy in favor of an emergency, unity government. Unity, as it became known, was staffed by technocratic leaders whose main purpose was to help bring back jobs and stability to the country. The whole process stank of corruption, and everyone could see what was really happening. The high unemployment numbers were due to automation rising to an all-time high. The New York Times published an article declaring that over 60% of goods and resources were now being produced by automated systems, drones, and robots. Max Weber, the billionaire tech entrepreneur, had launched Atom X. Atom X was a low-cost android that could be sold to industry to perform a multitude of tasks. A more robust version was already being used by the U.S. military, called the Ares X. The cheap source of labor never got sick, never complained, was never late, never asked for a pay raise or for vacation time. Millions of companies around the world had bought the machines to replace their human workforce. Various socialist movements had formed to demand human workers' rights and the creation of universal basic income. The leaders of the unions had a nasty habit of dying in car crashes or committing suicide by leaping from a 10-story window. I tried my best to stay out of politics. I'd gone from being a successful software developer to working in a warehouse. From there I became a barista, and now I'm stuck in the call center from hell. Still, I'm one of the lucky ones. The streets are littered with the tents of the homeless. Thousands of desperate people join the tent cities every day. Max Weber, the leader of the Unity government, gave a press conference warning that if violence continues, he would be forced to implement martial law. Behind him stood 2 Ares X robots, their red eyes scanning the room of journalists. How the hell did we end up with an unelected asshole like Weber calling the shots? I was running late as usual, so I downed the remainder of my coffee and headed out the door. Driving through downtown, the streets were a mess. Stores were burnt out, glass and blood covered the sidewalks. Police had cordoned off part of the street ahead, creating a mile-long traffic jam. As I drove past, I could see a sheet draped over a body in the street. The Ares X machines stood on patrol, their heads turning to record each passerby. Each driver was cataloged on a government server. The file included a mugshot, car make, model, and license plate number. Arriving at work, I was immediately met with a glare from Gary, the resident prick. Gary Thompson was the sales manager and an all-round asshole. He was one of those guys who thought he was something special and loved to bully and humiliate those who worked for him. Normally, I would never put up with a boss like him, but I really didn't have much of a choice given the state of the job market. Every time I felt my anger rising, I'd take a deep breath and tell myself, just one more month. As I sat in my cubicle, Mark came over grabbing a vacant office chair. Mark started working in the call center the week after me. We immediately bonded over our mutual hatred of Gary. Mark had been a web developer before the Depression and, like myself, had been steadily jumping from job to job. I guess a good Mark look-alike would be Jack Black. As for me, I'd have to go with Brad Pitt. I went through my usual emails, mostly spam. Of course, there was the mandatory, "It's Helen's birthday, please sign her card before, blah blah blah." God, I hate working in an office. I was on to my 4th call, working through the spreadsheet that was slowly consuming my soul. The woman on the other end started complaining about a product she had been sold, demanding her money back. I told her I had no idea what she was talking about and repeated the company name and product offer. She exploded with a string of abuse down the phone. I took a deep breath, twirling my pen between my fingers, and said, "Okay, thank you, ma'am. Have a nice day and be sure to go fuck yourself." I hung up and moved on to the next call. A few hours later, I was standing next to the coffee machine discussing movies with Mark. Linda approached us and told me Gary wanted to see me in his office. Given the mood I was in, this was the last thing I needed. As I took a seat in the office chair, Gary pretended not to see me. He just sat there typing away, enjoying his little pathetic power game. I started to whistle, provoking an immediate look of irritation and contempt. "Hi, Sam. Thanks for coming in." I noticed you were late this morning, he said, making a point to show me his Rolex watch. Yeah, well, you know half the city is on fire, so. I shrugged my shoulders. The look of contempt intensified as he leaned back in his chair playing with a cufflink. You know, Sam, it's tough out there and it's getting tougher every day. People are having to compete for limited resources. We are no different from a pack of wolves. Gary stood up, walking over to the office window. He turned the pole that opened the blinds, revealing the open-plan office, a maze of worker drones beavered away in cramped cubicles. The alpha is always the one that gets to eat first. If the betas want to get anything, they need to learn their place in the pack. They need to bow to the better man or they go hungry. He walked back to his desk. Leaning both fists onto the desktop, he raised his head, creating a triangular shape with his upper body.